everyone. For today's card I'm going to use a new set of stamps that I've got from Hero Arts, and I've got a few good ideas of what I want to do with the massive big flowers, but I thought I'd challenge myself to do something with the smaller flower, which I probably won't use quite so much. And I'm going to do some paper piecing with that. So I've just loaded that up on my acrylic block ready to go. And so you can see here I've got my base card already scored and folded. It's a mustard colour, not the usual craft cardstock, so it's kind of a deeper colour of that craft cardstock that I like so much. And I just laid it out there so you can see how it's vaguely going to start coming together. And the first thing that I need to do is to punch out this border punch. And this I think is the Apron Lace Border Punch by Fiskars. I can never remember the names of these punches, but I believe that's the correct one. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick this down to that bottom piece of card in that lovely pattern paper at the bottom of the card. I'm just lining it up on my mat here just to make sure I get it all straight, because I literally just want the scallops of that punch to show through and nothing else. And I'm just going to trim off those ends because I know the pattern piece of paper is already cut to the correct length. So that's good to go for a bit later on in the card. And you can see that's how I want it to ultimately finish. So what I'm doing here is I'm just lightly drawing a pencil mark so I know exactly where the bottom bit of the paper is going to come when I assemble the card. So this is so when I start stamping this flower, it enables me to see what's going to show on the end card and what is going to show, what isn't going to show, and what is going to show. And so I can set up my design accordingly. And I'm putting 3 flowers on this card, and I'm going to stamp them at ever so slightly different levels just to give the card a bit more interest. But you could stamp them all at exactly the same level. I just prefer doing it at different sort of heights. And here, just to sort of, I'm just going to stamp off the leaves because I want to cut the leaves out for those 3 sets of flowers. And so I've only stamped the bottom part of the stamp, as you can see there. And conversely for this one, what I'm going to do is just stamp the top bit of the stamp, so it's just that flower head. And I'm using the more colourful parts of this pattern paper just to make those flowers a little bit more interesting. So I've stamped off 3 of those, and I'm also going to do exactly the same thing here and stamp off 3 of the flower heads onto the orange. I also went ahead and stamped, I think just 1 on the green cardstock as well. Because once I cut them all out and laid them all together, I decided I didn't really like them all in that orange colour. And here I'm just going to show you how I clean off my stamps. I use the scrubber pad and what's it called now? The Ultra Clean stamp cleaner. And that gets off everything from stays on to distress inks, anything, everything comes off with that. It's great stuff. And so here I'm just cutting out all of those pieces that I stamped earlier. And what I'm doing, because it's paper piecing, I'm going to cut out the design is in kind of like little blocks, and I'm cutting out the inner block and the outer block in different colours so I can layer it accordingly on my design. And here I'm just sort of laying that out just to vaguely how I want it, and it was at this point I decided to stamp some of the colours just to make that a bit more interesting. And that's how I want it finished. So I'm just going to start sticking that together now. I'm just using some tape runner for the 2 outer flowers, and the inner flower I'm going to put on 3-dimensional stickers so that that middle flower will stick out a little bit more from the card than the other 2. And that just gives a little bit more of interest to the card. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the centres on as well. And for all of these centres I've adhered them using the 3-dimensional foam stickers. Excuse me. So this card will have quite a bit of height to it, so it's probably not one that's going to be good for posting because it's going to be quite thick to get in the envelope. But I do like, you know, 3-dimensional parts to my cards, so I'm not too bothered about that. I'll just pay the extra postage, it's fine. And here what I'm doing is I'm just gluing those itty bitty petals, leaves onto the stalks, just with some normal Tombow Mono Multi Glue. You could, you know, raise some of these off with 3D stickers, but I just thought they were far too small to be bothered messing around with that, so I just stuck them directly to the base card. And here what I'm doing is kind of doodling with my white gel pen. I do a lot of faux stitching with my white gel pen, but I don't do a whole lot else with it, you know, apart from the obvious handwriting. So I thought I'd have a go today and just doodle onto the pattern paper, and just kind of, you know, add a bit of myself to that, as opposed to it just always being about the pattern paper and that's it, card finished. And I really enjoyed doing this technique actually, and I think I will definitely do it again. And so what I've done on this middle flower is added a little diamond gem, excuse me, and that's just to give it a bit of added extra and a bit of bling, so I like a bit of bling on my cards. And I'm just adding that with you know, the usual glue. You can add these with glue dots, but I just find it more convenient with just liquid glue. And here I'm using a Copic marker just to colour in the stem or the stalk of each of these 3 flowers. And I believe that colour was G99. And here I'm just rubbing out that pencil mark I made at the very start. Now I can adhere this down to the card. I'm just centralising it there on the card, and then it's all stuck down, ready to go. And here's where I made a bit of a boo-boo. What I was supposed to do is stamp my sentiment on here, then stick it down. Because I'm using 3-dimensional stickers, you can't stamp onto something that's got 3-dimensional stickers on it. It just doesn't give a very good impression. It's very difficult to do, and I realised just about now and thought, oh, oops. But by then it was far too late, so I kind of got around it in a very long-winded way, but you know, it's just salvaged the card. So what I did is I stamped the sentiment anyway, just in the vague hope that it might work, but kind of realising that it probably wouldn't. It might have worked if I'd had some Versamark ink, but unfortunately I dropped some black embossing powder on my Versamark ink, so completely trashed it, and I'm waiting for my order to come through for a new one. So I just had to work with what I got, and it didn't work, but you know, you live, you learn. So you can see here that that embossing just didn't work. It splodged everywhere, the stamp wasn't clear. So in the end what I did is I just literally wiped off all of the embossing powder, and I've still got a vague outline of the actual stamp from the Brilliance ink. And I just had to go over it with my my white gel pen and draw it in myself. And I just used the stamp as a kind of guide, and yeah, just carefully drew it all in myself. So there's lessons learnt for me. You know, make sure you think the card through before you start sticking anything down. Otherwise you end up having to, you know, do it all the hard way. But, you know, it's fine. It still looked alright, looked how I wanted it to look. So what you also could do is do sort of a frame of faux stitching around that white cardstock with the flowers on it, but I decided I quite liked it without any faux stitching. I tend to use a lot of faux stitching in my work, so it's nice just to have one without it. So that's today's card. I hope you enjoyed it, including the mistakes, and I'll see you next time. Bye!